was killed by Hamas terrorists. He was on the phone with her the moment that she was shot and killed. Our hearts break for you, and we are so sorry for your unfathomable loss. Can you share with us your experience?
Yes, thank you. Let me just say something. I've been listening to the program. I remember learning the expression, a war to end all wars. Don't think of this as a conflict that can be readily ended once and for all. The forces against it are so deep, so fanatical, that's not the possibility. This thing was planned for months and months and months. The timing of it may have been somehow pre-understood. It may also be accidental, but know that it had to come, and that relates to the way in which my daughter died, my son-in-law died, and the 900 and plus people have died, and the people have been taking hostages. This was thoroughly planned and expected. The Hamas have great experience in taking hostages, as do the Iranians. Jimmy Carter ought to know that. So do we as Americans in terms of what happened in Iraq. And so,
did he call Joe Biden Jimmy Carter? Or was he talking about Jimmy Carter because the war was going on when Jimmy Carter was the president too? So he might have been talking about that. Let's continue.
in Somalia and so on. To your question, we were on the phone with her because she called us up at around 6:30 in the morning. When we began getting our pings on the phone, we have a special app that tells us when rockets are coming our way. We live in the Negev, on the other side of Beersheba, 45 seconds away from normal rocket fire from Gaza. That means 45 seconds to descend to our reinforced concrete shelter. Now, know that we have a shelter, but everybody else in the neighborhood, and indeed in the city, has a shelter. So do the universities, the churches, even the mosques, because we expect that we will be someday under this kind of attack. Debbie informed us that she was hearing glass shattering, and she had told us that she could hear Arabic being spoken in the neighborhood around the house, and that there was firing. That was the last communication. What then happened, we learned from our grandson. Our grandson was in their safe room together with Deborah's husband, our son-in-law, Shlomi. And they thought they'd try to secure themselves. What they didn't know, even after they pushed furniture against the door and locked the doors and locked the windows, was that the terrorists came prepared with explosive devices to blow open the door to the safe room. I just give you one example to give you a sense for the degree to which they were prepared and the degree to which they were insistent on murdering people. We lost contact with our daughter as she was killed, of course, but we were on the cell phone with our son for nearly 12 hours. In fact, this was a most unusual kind of conflict which Americans have never fought. As Americans, we fight conflicts where there's a front and where there's a rear. In this conflict, all of us were involved. Everybody has a cell phone. We were on the cell phone with our grandson throughout his entire captivity until he was released by the IDF nearly 12 hours later, so that we were able to share advice to him. Hide, keep quiet, don't use the phone, text. And we created a nationwide system of experts to help this young man out. There were physicians that helped him inspect his wound, for a bullet passed through his parents, who pushed him down, covered his body, and buffered the bullet as it entered into his abdomen, ensuring that it wouldn't go too far. And fortunately, it didn't touch a vital organ, and he survived. He's in a hospital nearby now. In short, he was in a situation where he had to devise instantaneously a strategy to survive a well-planned attack by people who were convinced of being murderers. When we met with him that night at the hospital in Beersheba, he was gray-black, meaning he was covered with gray-black soot, because after inspecting or walking around the house several times to see if anybody was still alive, they still weren't satisfied. So they set fire to all the houses in this neighborhood with the expectation that if anybody survived, they would come running out and then they would shoot him. They didn't want to miss anybody. This was part of the plan. Now, this is not military, classical military planning. This is planning that's designed to murder civilians. And that's what they have done. They knew what they were doing. This is not a war to end all wars. They have a sense, an empowerment by a deviant and misguided theology where they believe they're acting out divine will. That's not all Muslims. It's not all Arabs. Sadat came to make peace. We have peace with the Hashemites, with Hussein. We have the Abraham Accords with the Emirates. We have within Israel, in the last government, there was an Arab who was a minister. Half the pharmacists in Israel are now Arabs. 20+% of the students at the Haifa Technion are Arabs. The heads of departments at my university are Arabs. Our children went to a joint Arab-Jewish school where the languages of instruction were Arabic and Hebrew, in the hope that somehow that would create better understanding, enable us to live in a region that through the centuries has been polyglot, contained many different kinds of cultures. So this is a war that was designed by a fanatical group, not intent upon ending a war except with total victory and the destruction of the Jewish state.
Mr. Troen, what communication, if any, have you received from the Israeli government? And what do you expect to hear or hope to hear from our President Biden in an hour?
I can tell you that the American embassy got in touch with us. Deborah was born in Boone County, Missouri, when I was teaching at the University of Missouri. Other children of ours were born in Cook County, Missouri, when I was a student at the University of Chicago. So Americans wanted to know what is the safety of citizens in Israel. From the state of Israel, we have heard nothing about the children or about the war because they are inundated with an extraordinary situation.
Yeah.
We know our daughter and son-in-law are dead. We cannot have a funeral because we have not been able, or the government has not been able to cope with such a large number of bodies. The process of identification and burial is going to take some time, and I have to tell you, it is a terrible state to be in, where you know that a loved person is deceased, but you can't engage in the process of closure. And we don't know when that will take place. We expect our government is very busy. It's doing what it can. This is unprecedented.
Mr. Troen, our deepest sympathies and prayers. We stand in solidarity with you and your family.
I know.
And Israel.
I know.